Welcome to the Honest Art Podcast. I'm your host, Jody King. As an artist for 20 years, instructor, speaker, author, and fellow rebel, I've worked with thousands of people around the world, from beginners to established artists, helping them create their strongest art and build a career doing what they love. So if you are ready to have a little fun while you learn about art, creativity, building a thriving art business, and living a bold, audacious life, you are in the right place. Also, if you're considering going pro in your art business, grab the PDF in the show notes on the 5 things they don't teach you in art school. All right, let's get messy. Okay, welcome back to the Honest Art Podcast. I am your host, Jody King, and I'm super excited. We, as a team, had an idea a few months back. We're like, how is the best way that we could serve our audience and give them the content that's really going to help them move their business forward? And we thought, well, what if we actually brought the members of our team who helped me move my business forward? What if we brought those people on the podcast and they could each share their expertise with people? And so today y'all get to meet one of my remarkably talented teammates. And she's been with me the last few years. She's absolutely hilarious. But more than that, she's smart as hell. And she is just an incredible entrepreneur. She's built a really successful women only run, business. And she's really helped me tremendously, especially with strategy and copywriting. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about that. So everyone, please meet Latasha Doyle of Uncanny Content.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's so funny for us to be like, I'm going to interview you like I've never met you before.
Right. Exactly.
So just a little bit more about Latasha. So Latasha is the owner of, as I said, Uncanny Content. And Uncanny Content is it's really cool because it's a full service content strategy and copywriting agency. And what I love, one of the many things that I love about working with Latasha is we are really aligned from a business perspective in that her business, again, is run by creative women. And she also has a passion for the BIPOC community, the queer community, and other marginalized folks, the disabled community as well, by the way. She has a passion for them like I do, and really wants to help them amplify their reach and to be able to expand their business without burning out. So, we didn't talk about this before, Latasha, but I love that. I love that that's a core value of your business. How did you come to that, and why? Just tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I first started copywriting, I was freelancing. I was just kind of picking up, blogs, emails, websites, wherever I could from whoever I could. And a little theme emerged, and that theme was I was consistently being disrespected by certain clients, mostly of the cis white male variety. And as I started to kind of hone in on what I could do for people where I really was, shining, I found that I had the most impact with the women of color, the disabled women, the stay-at-home moms, the queer community. I had the most impact with my skills with them because traditionally they don't have the same hours in the day as like a cis white male, right? So they're trying to market this business, they're trying to grow, they're trying to do their creative thing, they're doing this thing that they love, and they didn't have the bandwidth to market it. And I just found that by working with them, it was so much easier to share my skill set in a way that was collaborative and partnership based, and actually got people results. So in 2019, I rebranded from just, me freelancing, me being a, solo person, to running an agency because I wanted to focus on those communities and I wanted to focus on the people who love what they do and don't treat other people like shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's hard to argue with, right? Um, and I think we're really aligned in that way. So I love that. When I work with you, I know that you are going to have the backs of all of these marginalized communities, and I really feel like so much of that is also us as creatives and as artists, right? Especially in terms of our hours, can be different. A lot of us artists we have a full-time or at least a part-time job, and so we're not able to kind of do a traditional way of doing anything. And even more than that, we don't want to. Usually we don't want to do things. We're creatives, for God's
Yeah.
sakes, right? We want to do things differently.
I also think that that's the coolest part is that, these women of color, these disabled folks, these queer folks, everybody who does not fit like a traditional mold, like what, older generations would say is a traditional mold.
Older, like 56.
No, no. The standard, right, that we have
Yes.
set, they're doing it differently. And to do it differently, you have to have somebody who really understands that vision on your team. And I think that's the really cool thing about working with you too, is that like you're so different in the way that you operate with your work, the way that you lead a team, but you also have a team of people who really understand that we're doing it differently and it doesn't need to look like what, a traditional business model needs to look like. And it has impact and it's changing the systems that, we assume are standard. We don't have to
Right.
operate businesses like Fortune 500 company who doesn't give a shit about their people.
Right. Right. So true. And there are so many different ways for artists to get the things done that we need to get done. And when you look at traditional businesses and they're like, okay, if you want to have a 7-figure business, that means that, 7-figure business owners wake up at 4 and they exercise from 4 to 5. And then, they get a jump on everybody. And then they do, do you know what I'm saying? Like all
Yeah.
of this is how you do it. And, and as creatives, I saw this thing once where it listed like Mozart and Picasso and like all
Yeah.
of these famous creatives and the times of day that they did things. It was all over the board,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
over the board. And so, yeah, I just love that. I love that you speak to that. It's like we can do things differently
And
than,
it's been gate kept for so long. You
yeah,
see these people talking about, oh, you have to get up at 4 a.m. You have to, early bird gets the worm. It's bullshit. It's making people who don't do that feel like they can't succeed. And it's just a lie.
yeah, totally agree. All right. So enough about us, but tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah. So I was actually a nanny in a previous life. When I graduated from high school, I was going into pharmacy. I worked in a pharmacy for 2 weeks and I hated the lack of humanity in the space. And I wrote my 2 week notice and then I thought, I'm not giving 2 weeks. And then I just walked out.
Nice.
And then I went back to what I know, which was raising other people's children. Because I'm the
Mm-hmm.
oldest of 5. I was born and bred to raise other people's children. So I went back to being a nanny, and I was a nanny for a decade. I actually have a condition called Marfan syndrome, Marfan. It's a connective tissue disorder, but the main risk is to my heart. And I don't know if you know this, but running after children all day is really exhausting and hard on the body.
Yeah,
And it was
imagine.
getting harder and harder. And one day I was carrying one of my toddlers up the stairs, and I almost fainted with her in my arms. And I was just like, I can't. This isn't safe for anybody anymore. And I had been writing for a website called care.com. It's basically like a babysitter, nanny, like caregiving site where you can like find families or find caregivers.
Yeah.
I had been writing for their website because I was so mad that they had no resources for nannies that I was like, I had one of my nanny kiddos' grandparents died and the parents had to leave and I had to spend the weekend with them and explain to them that like their grandpa died. And how do you explain, that the peach colored crayon is not skin colored? Like all of these things where it was like, I don't know what to say right now. And I went to the resources that I thought could help, and they couldn't help. So they asked me to write for them. And thankfully, I had that in place when I knew I couldn't nanny anymore. And I thought, well, if they're going to pay me to do it, somebody else is going to pay me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. This is my 9th year doing this. I went full time in 2015, and then in 2019 is when we restructured into Uncanny as it stands now.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have 8 employees, including myself, and we, serve creatives, moms, queer folk, disabled folk. Yeah, the whole spectrum.
And just normal weird folks like me.
Exactly. The weirder, the better, actually. So, yeah,
it's a good fit.
But
I'm sorry. No, you go ahead. Finish.
I was just gonna say I have built this business around my disability and my desire to be creative and work with cool people, and it worked. It has worked. So it's just been really rewarding.
Amazing. So one of the things that I feel like you add so much value to me as an artist, as a business owner, is we will have, I don't know if my audience knows this, but our team meets once a week for 1 hour. It's like a power hour. And everybody gives, updates and suggestions. And we talk a lot about strategy. And one of the things that you're so good at is strategy. So from what you just told me, I'm sitting here going, but you're so strategic. You're like, your shit so well. So how is it that you got all of this, like your strategy is locked in? So where did that come from?
I am obsessed with learning. I always have been. I was the kid reading books about things I should not have been reading books about when I was like 8 or 9.
Girl, you still read books that nobody should.
Listen, I said the weirder the better, okay?
Okay, I'm just going to let in our audience a little bit. This girl reads the nastiest books. And she is so unapologetic about it. I absolutely love it. Love it.
If anybody needs any smut recommendations after this, let me know. But I think as I was starting, I was freelancing, I was writing things for people, and I was constantly wondering, well, why are we writing this when I think you do this with your business? And it was a matter of curiosity and maybe a dash of control freak,
Yeah.
But as I got more and more into it, I was like, oh, actually, they don't know. They're just being told they need to do this. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do the research. And that led me down rabbit holes. I've taken courses, I've done certifications, I've done all these things to essentially advocate for my clients to say, hey, if we're going to create this content, if we're going to write this copy, it's going to be intentional. It's going to be on purpose. It's going to actually get you results, because otherwise you're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks.
Right.
We can figure out what sticks before we throw it, So
Yeah. For those of you out there that are listening right now and you think, what do you mean by strategy? Because, I paint and I need to sell it. Mm-hmm. So where does strategy come in on that?
Yeah.
What could you say to that?
When you're a creative, you're thinking, I want to create my best art. And when you approach the canvas, you have a strategy for it. You have a process, you have I use this color palette or I use these tools. That's your strategy for painting. Even though you are so creative and everything kind of changes the second it gets on the canvas, you have an approach. You have I have this intention. And that's all strategy, especially marketing strategy is to me, is this intention. I am going to, my goal is to get into this gallery. Okay, so that's your goal. And now what's your strategy to get there? Are you, building your social media following to show them hey, I have, 100 followers or whatever it is? Is it, I want to sell more of my paintings from my website. So I need to build my website. I need to build my email list. I need to be driving people to my site. It's essentially just the tools that you need to do to reach the goals that you have. Right. And I'm a content strategist, which means that I help you with the, organic content that you have going out So like for you, you have your podcast that drives people back to the site, that lets people know what you do. For, artists that we've worked for, it's a matter of how am I showing up on social? How am I showing up on my email list? What updates do we need to make to the website? If they have ads or anything like that. I have a couple of people who do like free downloads to get people onto their email list, things like that. It's really just, what are the steps I'm taking to reach my goals?
Right, right. One of the things that I've seen you do recently that I thought was really helpful and that so many artists could really maybe learn from is that you went on yours as Uncanny Content. You went on, I believe it was TikTok, it may have been Instagram as well, but you talked about how many different touch points, according, I believe, to Google Analytics. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. How many different touch points people need to, see you and to see your work before you build that know, like, and trust factor. And I thought, oh my gosh, I love this so much because what I hear from artists is I posted a painting and it didn't sell. And I've been posting for a month and nothing is selling. And what I go back to is it's a long game. But it's made shorter with authenticity, right? That's how I feel. It's made shorter with authenticity and consistently showing up, and that is strategy. That's what
Yeah.
I think you're just so good at.
I think the thing, when people hear strategy, they think it's very technical, analytic, all these things. It's still human based.
Mm-hmm.
Any strategy you have is how can I connect with more people to get them to, know me. It doesn't even have to be buy from you, because if they know you, they might refer you. They might, send other people to your art, whatever it is. The rule you're talking about is Google's 7-11-4 rule. You can Google it. It's their rule. But it's 7 hours of content, 11 touch points across 4 platforms, which means that to convert one person, you have to have them consume 7 hours of your content across 11 touch points. So that's your website, that's your, email inbox, that's, oh, they saw your story and they DM'd you, things like that are all touch points across 4 platforms.
Okay, so let me just wait, hold on just a second. So let me just clarify this for the artists out there. So 7 hours of content, that seems like, holy shit, 7 hours of content, but it's so doable. Like if you do reels consistently and you do carousels, if you do all, just showing up like that, right? And then across 4 platforms. So I when I heard that, I was like, I don't want to be on, Patreon and on, no shame to that. I'm just saying I'm already embedded in Instagram but that's like, oh, this actually is good news. So it's my email list, right? Which I'm always talking to artists about building their email list. It's my website. It's social media. And, I go out, it's meeting people at galleries. It's meeting people at workshops. It's just basically, networking in person, right?
A platform isn't an app. It can be whatever your platform is. So like for you, you have the podcast too. Somebody else could do art fairs. They could do workshops. They could do, I'm going to go to the, Artist Alley on, every Saturday in June or whatever. Those are your platforms. It doesn't have to be, you have to be on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and X or Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now.
Yeah. Which is, and I just think that's such good news for artists out there, because we do tend to be introverts, not always, but a large majority of artists are introverts. And so the idea of like, oh my God, I got to keep putting myself out there, that I'd rather shove bamboo under my fingernails, but it's really not like that.
Yeah, it's really not like that. And I think it's always with the intention of connection. I think people get overwhelmed when they hear me talk about content plans and, the 7-11-4 rule, and they think, oh my God, it's so technical, I have to do all these things. It's not a box to check. It's something that you get to make a connection with somebody else. And I just think that's really cool.
Well, that's what's unique about, I know it's not unique to the entire world, but I think it really is unique. And why I love working with you is because we are aligned on this is about connection. This is about connecting. This is about humanity and the people. And because you do so much of my copywriting, and why don't you tell people like what that word even means and like how I mean, you use it so many different ways
Yeah.
in for me.
Yeah. So there's a lot of conversation around content writing versus copywriting. So content is more considered to be more like your weekly newsletters, your social captions, blogs that you write, if you write them, things like that. Your podcast show notes, stuff like that. That's considered to be content because it's educating, it's sharing value, it's, engaging with your audience. And then there's copywriting, which has, in my opinion, been gate kept for a very long time because it's, what you think of like Mad Men when they're writing those gorgeous ads and like they're thinking about like, oh, what word goes here? And like, it's just this like, a beautiful mind scenario where you're like nitpicking every word. That is kind of what copywriting has been viewed as like, oh, for my web copy, it has to be this like very complicated, very beautiful process. I use content writing and copywriting interchangeably because the way I see it, you're constantly connecting, you're constantly providing value. And the ultimate goal of anything you're doing is to convert people, period. So
Yeah.
why is content and copy so different? I don't know. I am on the outside of the copywriting industry because I say this, because it is traditionally viewed as like content is for value in relationships, copy is to sell and convert. And if that helps you kind of like delineate the two, you do you. That's totally fine.
But that's
Um,
not how we do it around here.
no, because everything so like what I do for you, it's how are we jam packing this with value and also letting them know like we have this really cool thing they can do if they want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. It's not like you have to buy this now. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you view content strategy?
Yeah. I also shockingly have a lot of thoughts on this as well. Uh,
I'm so glad because I know whatever you're about to say. I have no idea what you're about to say, just for anybody. I never have any idea what's going to come out of Latasha's mouth. But I know whatever you're about to say is not going to be in like this kind of bullshit uh upper level speak. It's going to be like this is so doable, right?
mhm.
So content strategy does not have to scare us as artists. I know whatever you're about to say is going to be like really approachable. So don't fuck it up.
Okay, no pressure. So I always talk about capacity first content. There's a lot of shit out there that's like, you have to post 2 reels a day on Instagram. And if you want to grow your email list, you have to be sending 4 emails a month. And, you need to have this 10 blog strategy to drive traffic. And if you want to sell your paintings, you have to do these ads. Like there's so many things out there telling you what to do. And you've heard a little bit about my background at this point. I have a disability. I don't have 10 hours a week to market. I just don't. As
Mm-hmm.
creatives, probably the thought of marketing your art for 10 hours a week makes you want to like curl up in a ball and hide.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have other limitations. You may have a full-time job. You may have kids. You may have a disability. You may be advocating, for things in your community and in the world that take you away from your time to really take this to market. And what I always say is start with where you are with what you have. I will be entirely honest. I have 15 minutes a day to market my business. 15 minutes. And in that time, I can make a reel or I can, send a quick pitch to somebody or I can network with somebody in my agency masterminds. That's 15 minutes of marketing. And that's all I have. That's all I have. And that's
Well,
okay.
I love this because that's all most of us. I mean, we
Right.
may have a little more, a little less, but at
Right.
15 minutes, if we can give 15 minutes a day.
And it doesn't even have to be a day. Maybe you have like a Friday off and you're like, that's my content day. Like I'm gonna, batch a month of social captions or, I'm gonna take a video of me, painting this canvas so that I can put that up on my website. Things like that, where it's like I have, maybe an hour today and I don't have an hour tomorrow. But it really helps, especially creative folks. I know that structure feels kind of like icky, but to think about it in terms of like, what do I have to work with? And not like, how can I willpower the shit out of this? I'm not asking you to like buckle down and like do the thing. I'm saying, what do you have? What can you work with?
Love that. And you call that capacity first.
Capacity first marketing. Yeah.
Love that. So what is our personal capacity? What do we have to work with?
Yeah.
And start
And then
there.
as you get used to it. So for me, you know, I have 15 minutes a day. I know I have 15 minutes a day. As my agency has grown, I know that marketing is a little bit different for my business versus somebody like you. I have built structures that help. My team helps me write content now, so like I can create more content without me being involved. For an artist, I don't know that you ever need to get there, so it's more. I have 15 minutes today and maybe for the next month, but I'm thinking about all the ways I can grow. I'm thinking about all the ways I can market my brand. Okay, so what can I do maybe next month? Can I add 15 minutes a week? Can I add an hour a week? And going from there, but you start with what you have. You don't beat yourself up about it. If you can't market your shit one day or one week, that's okay. Like stuff happens.
Right.
What are you doing to just build that muscle up?
Right. And that's the thing that I think feels so daunting. We're like, I want to be a creative. I just want to paint my ass off and then I would sell my paintings. That's it. And so what we are saying is you can do that. You can paint your ass off and sell your paintings. What we're trying to do is help you sell more of those paintings by saying you have a strategy, have a quote content strategy that includes 4 platforms, meaning an email list, social media, get out there, meet people, whatever it might be, but have 4 different things really. So we're not trying to overcomplicate this. Because obviously I've been doing this 20 years. So the way I work with Latasha might not, as a copywriter, everything might be different, obviously, than how you do it. But it's all of the principles still apply.
Yeah. And I will also say too, I think one of the things that has always helped clients who are a lot more creative, pick a theme for the week and stick to that. So like for you, we have, a theme of the week for the podcast, and we kind of pull that through the rest of all of your copy and content.
When I listen,
you know what? It's okay if you don't. Shit happens. But I do think that it helps to give yourself kind of like those, what are like the bumper guards when you play, when you go bowling with a kid or you're an adult, whatever. Yeah. And you kind of just give yourself that bumper of like, you know what, this week I'm just going to focus on, the story behind this one painting or this collection, let's say. Or this week I'm going to focus on my process. The other thing that I don't see enough artists doing is just showing how fucking jazzed they are to step up to the canvas.
Yeah.
Like I have purchased recently an artist, Kit Gray Illustrations. She is disabled. She does beautiful, beautiful paintings of like birds and, flora, fauna, all of that. But she started doing pet portraits. And I have had 7 pets. I have since lost 4 of them. And I wanted to get this package. And the thing that made me finally jump on it was she was talking about how much she loves it when people send her these pictures of their pets. And like, she just is so excited to get to paint these pictures, and how emotional it makes her because she can tell like how loved these pets are. And as somebody who like, I don't have kids, my pets are, that's my life. It really made me feel like I can give her these paintings and she'll give me something that like I will cherish forever. And that was like one of the most important things I realized after that is like, oh, I'm missing that from artists that I follow.
Yeah.
Is this like deep desire to create this thing because it makes me emotional. It makes me excited. Listen, I'll buy paintings all day long if y'all artists talk about stuff like that.
No, that's so real. I talk often about, tell us a story about the piece itself, because that allows the collector to connect to not only the art, but the artist. But what I hear you saying is that I could do better, or take it a step further, and maybe other artists could do the same, is like, I talk often about the piece, but I maybe could talk a little bit more about my excitement and my experience with the art and showing up and that sort of thing. And so maybe not just,
Yeah.
Obviously, people are like wanting the art, but talking about my own excitement, my own
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Latasha.
And I know that, creative blocks can be bitches. So you may not be excited this week about that. So maybe wait till the week you are excited. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
And then film three videos on that
Exactly.
week that you're
Exactly.
excited.
Go where the energy takes you. If one week works better for you to like film video or be excited, go do that, and then you can use those later. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Batch them, right?
It really does make a difference when your collectors, when your buyers, when your fans see you be excited about what you're creating, or even really emotionally connected to a piece. It doesn't have to be, oh my God, I'm so excited to come to the canvas. It can be, this piece broke my heart. I left it all.
Yeah. Tell
Like,
the truth. Be
yeah,
authentic. Let people see the whole
yeah.
thing, right?
Mhm.
So this leads me into my next question about being authentic and all of that. Um, Copywriting, we cannot escape copywriting as artists.
Nope.
If you have a business, you cannot escape copywriting
Mm-mm.
because you've got to have your captions written. You've got to send emails to people. If you have a website, you have to have copy on the website. Like we can't, and if the emails to communicate to people, if you sound like a professor, that is not gonna, like, let your freak flag fly, right?
Maybe that's
But
their brand, okay?
oh yeah, Professor Brand. That's funny. Lean into it. If your brand is Professor, get the glasses, get the pocket protector, and lean into that shit.
I would read
Uh,
that book.
all right, so we can't escape copywriting. So since we can't, even though we think we can, oftentimes, what are some tips that you can give us as artists for copywriting?
Yeah. So to your point, you can't escape copywriting. I don't know if you know this, but like the little placard with like the name of your piece that you put on the wall at an art gallery, that's copywriting.
Amazing. How about that?
So anytime that you are wanting to sell your art, anytime that you want to build an audience, every word that you write is copywriting, it's content writing, it's all these things. That doesn't mean you need to overthink it. That doesn't mean I want you to clench up and think, oh God, I can't be a copywriter. I'm not a copywriter. You already are. You're already writing. um, the one thing I will say is that your content and your copy need to be written for the platform that you're on. So I've seen everybody across, industries, artists, creatives, professionals, everybody. They will write a wall of text as their caption or their email. And it's just a long, rambly thing. And it's not optimized for the platform that you're on. And when I say optimized, just think about how you like to consume content on those platforms. When I open my email on my phone and I see a wall of text, I'm
Right.
out. I'm out.
You know what it reminds me of? When it's just a wall of text, no spaces, no photos. It reminds me of how when you accidentally receive something from a computer that's just like a bunch of, I don't even know if they're words. Like they're just
Like
a,
the error message on the old
yes,
doc.
yes, exactly. That's kind of what it feels like. I was like, I don't even know what to do with all this. It's just a bunch of letters, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So think about the platform that you're on. Think about how people consume it. You're already going to write better than you think you're going to write. People will always say, like, I'm not a great writer. You don't have to be a great writer. You just have to be able to share your ideas. That's it. But if you are on Instagram, let's say, don't have a wall of text. You have, I think it's 120-ish characters, letters, spaces,
Are you
punctuation.
talking about for the bio or are you talking
No,
about?
for like the very, you see your picture or your video or whatever, and then you see that little text, and then you have to say, see more to read the rest of the caption.
Right.
Make that little blurb as hooky as you can,
Yeah.
let's say it just says, this, collection broke my heart. I want to read the rest of that caption. Let's go.
Yes.
That is, in my opinion, why people gatekeep copywriting, because there is an art to formatting the words more so than the words themselves.
Right.
And when
No
you're in
gatekeeping
email,
around here. We're spilling all the tea to give everybody all the info, right?
exactly. And, email, those subject lines matter. You want to hook them. There was one time that we used a subject line that says "You're grounded," and it had the first name tag, and I didn't realize your daughters were on the list. You remember that?
I remember this.
And they opened that email so fast.
Yes.
But it's subject lines that, again, this piece broke my heart, or, I sold two pieces at this gallery, or, whatever, like hooks that are relevant to the platform that you're using. So
Yeah.
subject lines on emails, those first 125-ish characters on
Okay, can I
Instagram.
just tell you about this? I found this out last week. This
Yeah.
might be a surprise to you because it was a surprise to me. So, what Latasha is talking about, at least on Instagram, is when people are scrolling, just scrolling, they'll see an image and then they'll see some copy. They'll see your handle and then they'll see some copy. And it used to be, up until last week, at least what I noticed, it used to be you had two lines.
Yeah.
You had two lines to hook people, right?
Yeah.
Because that's all they would see are the two lines unless they tapped on it and then they kept reading the rest.
Mhm.
As of last week, I saw you've got like 6 words, maybe.
Yeah. I think Instagram is shooting themselves in the foot, for one, but they're also, I think they're changing the format of the feed a little bit, because you see like the font has changed, like there's some things that are updating. I think that might work itself out, but to your point, seeing those things and being like, okay, what am I doing with this very minimal real estate? That matters.
Yeah.
Um,
That
because if you're
hook,
like,
those 6 words
yeah.
are some of the most important words you're going to write because you
The
got to
other
get them
thing
to
I will
stop.
say is that I have seen artists just leave the name of the piece for those words. I don't want that. I don't
Mm-mm.
want to know the name of the piece. I want to know what the piece is to you,
Yeah.
as much as you can. Um, and I know that like you're just trying to list your art. I'm not, criticizing, but really think about that top caption real estate as like mission critical. And then, we get to your website, and there's, if you sell your art on your website, there's product descriptions that you really need to optimize. So not only what are the dimensions, what's the, canvas material, what oil paintings or oil paints did you use, shipping, all of that. You also need to include the story. You need to include the impact. You need to get people to love that piece. They already clicked on it because they like the way it looks. Now we have to like make them love it.
Yes.
Um,
And can I add to that just a
yeah,
bit?
yeah, yeah,
So it sounds like we're asking, you to write, a dissertation on what this piece means. And really, it's just like 2 or 3 sentences.
yeah. It's not much.
Yeah, not much. And it goes a long way. The more you write for those kind of things, the less they're going to read, I think. But here's the other thing about it is that when you are writing about your art, you definitely want to be real and authentic about what this piece meant to you. But at the same time, leave some room for the collector to have their own experience with it,
Mhm.
right? So, as an example, let's say that you wrote a piece about, like, maybe you went through a divorce, because a lot of people know I did, right? So I went through a divorce. It was really difficult, like all divorces are. And I did a lot of painting in that time as a way of healing myself. Now, when I write about these pieces, I write in general terms. Like,
Yeah,
I didn't say, this was the day this motherfucker, blah, 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 right? Because that is so much of my experience. I want to leave room for the collector to have their own experience with it. So I would say something like, battling grief, blah, blah. And then, this really speaks to how we can get to the other side of this
yeah.
grief. So when we're writing it, leaving space, like within the copy, be personal. But anyway, that's my
Yeah, I
little.
think um, art listing, like product descriptions, are copywriting art unto themselves. I do have a little bit of a trick for this, because I know that creatives can be very much like This is the world that I've built. This is what this painting means to me. Have a glass of wine, eat something green, like whatever you want to do, and talk to a friend about what that painting is about and have them say, this is how I see it as somebody who's not involved.
Yes.
And that can be really, 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 really helpful to get like a second, objective party to say, okay, so you're saying this is about your divorce, but what I'm hearing is grief.
Yes.
And I think that that's really helpful. When you're just like, I wrote 4,000 paragraphs about this painting. Like you can't do that. You can't sell that way, unfortunately.
No.
So yeah.
Well, those are great tips. Anything else?
Don't overthink it. I have so many people who are like, well, should I use the word luxurious or should I use the word smooth? And it's like, what do you want to use? Like,
Right.
I'm not going to be, there is a lot of copywriters who are like, don't use this word. I don't give a fuck what word you use as long as it resonates with you. You could
Exactly.
have a typo in there. I don't give a shit.
Right.
It is you. It is your art. You can have, I've seen a couple of artists use like lowercase. They use Gen Z language. They're using their personality and their brand, and they are stretching the rules of what you might consider to be like proper grammar. And it works. Who gives a
Yeah.
shit? You're writing your own story. You're creating your own brand. You make art out of fucking nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
who cares what the rules are? Who
Right.
cares?
And it's like, I feel like sometimes we've got that that 7th grade or that 10th grade English teacher in our head saying, you have to put the comma there and you have to have what was it? A noun, a verb, and a adjective or something like that. You can't, it's like, no, we got to throw all that
And
out.
you can't end on a preposition, whatever the fuck those are. I don't know.
I actually left English, so I know what all those are. But but still, nobody's the boss of me. I'm going to write however I want to write. And another just tip is when people are like, I don't know what to write. I say, talking to your recorder on your phone, right? And
Yep.
to your audio on your phone, and that's you writing.
I will say a lot of people that I know are neurodivergent in some way, shape, or form. So I know for you, it's a matter of getting you to process things out. It's however you need to process. So I think a lot of times you freehand your notes and things like that. Do that. If you're a journaler, write it out and then shorten it out when you're, at your computer. If you're a talker, talk it out. If you're a video person, record yourself, like whatever it is. For me, I am very much a list maker, so I'll outline stuff before I write anything.
Yeah.
It's really leaning into like how you can download the ideas from your brain and then process them later, knowing that you don't have to do this for 4 hours a day. Like I said, capacity first. If you only have capacity to write one caption a week, that's fine. Do that, but process it however you need to before that.
For sure. For sure. Okay. Now I'm hoping that we are not, like the artists out there are not feeling overwhelmed at all. But if you are, how do we know? I know how I knew it was time to hire someone. Again, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and we've only been working together the last few years. But I was really struggling with some burnout and things like that. And so for me, that's when I knew I needed support. And it was very important to me that I find somebody who aligned with my values, because you're basically my voice, right? In so much of what I'm doing. So that was so important. But how would somebody know when it's time to hire somebody? And of course, the second part of that is going to be where would they look? But let's start with just how would they know when it's time to hire somebody?
I think there's 2 prongs to this. It's, I don't know what to share. I could write it, but I don't know what to share, versus I know what I want to share and I don't have the time to share it.
Right.
So if you're in the first camp, which most people usually are, they usually get very in their head and they're like, I don't know what to talk about. That's where you would need content strategy support. Somebody to help you come up with ideas, somebody to help you organize, like, okay, I have 2 hours a week. What am I creating in those 2 hours? That would be content strategy help. You need to hire for that, versus I have this whole calendar. I was rocking it and then life happened, or I got really busy. I'm trying to get all these paintings out. I've had these commissions. but I don't want it to dry up and I need help marketing my brand, that's when you hire a content writer or a copywriter. Um, and I will also say people tend to write their own websites. That's great. Start where you can start. But if you want your website to convert better, you probably need to work with a copywriter.
So when you say convert better, are you talking about what, like, explain what that means?
So if you want to sell your paintings from your website, you probably want a copywriter. If you want to drive traffic to like build interest on your email list, if you are trying to put yourself out there to galleries or festivals, or you want to put yourself out there as like a workshop leader, you probably want to have a copywriter come in and say, these are the things that need to change, because that is all conversions. You're building trust, you're building, your reputation, you're building sales. That's where I always recommend a copywriter come in, because they're going to be able to tell you like, hey, this messaging, your brand voice is great, but the technical delivery needs to just kind of change a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you create a metric shit ton of content and you can't keep up with it, whether you have a YouTube or a podcast, or you are like commission busy, 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 that's usually when you need somebody on your team who can help you write the content and emails and blogs and social captions and all the things, because you're focused on making money and
Yeah.
making art, and that at some point the cost is worth it to help you
Yeah.
stay doing what you need to do.
Exactly. This is where it always gets down to, okay, where's my revenue coming from? Right? Where do I need to be spending my precious time in my zone of genius? And what can I ask for support on, even if it's not like hiring somebody full time or anything? Like, what is my zone of genius? What is it that only I can do? And for me, my zone of genius is only I can make those paintings, right? Only I can create that art.
Yep.
Only I can have my face out there talking about my art, right?
Yep.
That's only me.
Yep.
And so that's where it's so great to have, I just did a thumbs up and I got a thumbs up bubble on the screen. And now I just want to do it constantly because
And this is what ADHD looks like.
because of my neurodivergence. I'm sorry for all of you out there that can't see this magical little thumbs up journey I'm on right now. I don't even know what I was talking about, but I was just saying for artists, I think I was saying for artists, what is your zone of genius?
Mhm.
Don't get bogged down on the things that, really, need to get done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Don't get bogged down. Look at your capacity, but also look to get support in hiring somebody. And so how would they do that if they're like, I can't do it all?
Yeah. So if you realize that you need content strategy help, look for a content strategist. That we do that here at Uncanny, but there are other people who do it and who are also wonderful at it. If you're realizing that, I will also say if you have like you're dyslexic, you have any sort of like learning challenges, things like that, writing can be really hard for some folks. And if that's you and hey, I need a better website. Hey, I need to like lean into this newsletter thing. I need to lean into social. And it is so difficult for me to do this stuff. That's where you need to go into like, I need a content writer. I need a copywriter. I will say that, in general, it helps to know that like content writers are, usually blog, email, social, newsletters, show notes, things like that. Copywriters usually do things like, your welcome email sequence, your website, ad copy, things like that. There's usually a delineation there. So decide what kind of support you need, whether it's ongoing weekly marketing or it's like this, a bigger project that you need a quote unquote copywriter for.
So this is really good. This is really, really good information, because so many times it's like, well, I don't even know what to ask for. I don't even know like the name of that. So there's content strategist. If you just don't know what to post, don't know what to do next, that you look for a content strategist. If you're like, okay, I know what to post, but I don't know how to do it well, and I don't have the time, then I think what you said is there's can you just say those two names again? Copywriter?
So weekly content. So like your blog, email, social, podcast, YouTube, whatever you have going out, that's content writing.
Okay.
General. And then website, like larger email sequences, ad copy, things like that. That's copywriter.
Okay.
I know that I said that I think they're the same, but
Yeah.
just so that people understand that like you're going to be looking for two separate people most likely,
Okay.
unless you work with somebody like Uncanny Content or a full service agency like what we have.
Right.
But the other thing that I will say is a lot of people will hire like a VA, a virtual assistant, to help them just like, hey, I got this started. Can you polish this up? That works too.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not, the best at it. You can find one who is. I've worked with some really amazing VAs who are really good at that. And that's, in some cases, a more affordable option.
So
And
a
they can also,
VA, for those of you who are not familiar with that term, VA just means virtual assistant. And a virtual assistant can just be actually incredibly cost effective. Like it's surprising what some virtual assistants are. You can get some in the US, you can get them overseas, et cetera. But I think that's a great idea, Latasha, to find a VA that has some copyright experience, right?
yeah,
Could be good too.
yeah. They are not copywriters, so don't get mad at them when they don't nail it, okay? There's so
Right.
many people who do.
Right.
It is mostly they're here to polish up what you've given them. And they can be
Yeah.
amazing at that. And they can help
Yeah.
schedule things. They can help make graphics in some cases. It's a very like jack of all trades role. And I think
Right.
that's a really awesome place for a lot of people to start, especially if budget is a concern, which, who doesn't have budget concerns?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. Okay. This is going to be my final question, but I think it's a really, really important one because we can be all over the place, or maybe it's just me with my
It's everybody.
ADHD. I think it's everybody. But what do you think are the two best practices that an artist can focus on to grow their business?
Content strategy, knowing your goals and knowing how you're going to get there with what you create is content strategy. And excitement.
I love that.
I think that if you're excited about what you're creating, you're excited about showing your art, you're excited about what it means to your collectors,
Yeah,
it changes the game.
totally.
And anytime you can show up with just the spark in your eyes, people see it.
I love that. And I just want to circle back real quick to the first one you said was content strategy. And what this has looked like for me in the past that might be relatable because I teach this in my programs in the Art Biz for Rebels program and Studio Elite and all of that. But what I teach is if you are going to release a collection, let's say, during the holidays or Mother's Day or whatever it might be, if you're going to release a collection, there should be some strategy to releasing that collection. And so that would be an example of content strategy. And so what we do here at Jody King Media is we go, okay, you know what? We're going to release a collection on such and such date. So what do we need to have in place? Like, what are the emails and that need to be written? What do those need to include? Do they need the photos? What is, when do we first need to start sending them out? How do we remind people? Are we going to remind people the day of? Are we going to remind, like, that is a strategy. And then we also look at how often are we going to post on Instagram about it? What's going to be that strategy? So that's that, I think that's so important for us as artists, rather than just going, I think I'll release a collection on Valentine's Day. And then on February 14th, you put the paintings out there and you're like super shocked that nobody, was buying them.
Your art is still a product, and no product comes out of the blue and is suddenly dropped into the ether and everybody buys it. There's hype, there's promotion, there's partnerships, there's, everything to make sure that people see it. So just remember, your content strategy is how people see you as an artist and see your collections.
Love it. And then, God, do not forget that excitement. It is contagious.
It is. It really is. And I've seen people who create one thing a week and they're just fucking jazzed to do it. And they have the numbers.
Yeah.
And it's because people want to see people being people.
Yeah. People being real, right? Thank you for doing this, Latasha.
Yeah.
I think you are amazing at what you do. And I know that artists are going to get a lot out of our conversation today. How can people find you if they're interested in learning more about Latasha Doyle and Uncanny Content?
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram at Uncanny Content. You can also look at our content strategy services that are on uncannycontent.co. There's no M, .co.
Okay.
Um,
We'll
and
put all of this in the show notes just so
yeah,
that people don't get confused as
yep,
well.
yep. And that's how
Awesome.
you can find us.
Thank you so much. And again, appreciate all that you do for me and for now, all the artists out there that are going to hear this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Take care. I've been lucky enough to experience a great deal of success as an artist and the confidence that comes with it. But none of that would have happened if my art was mediocre. And it was for a little while. But I want every artist to enjoy the confidence that comes from creating art that is truly fine art and art that they are proud of. So I created a course that almost 1,000 artists have now taken called the Color Course for Rebels. And it will be on sale for a limited time, May 13th through 27th. So you can save $150 off of the course during that time. And you'll learn more than just color. You'll also learn all about composition and getting unstuck and everything else that it takes to create truly fine art. If you're interested in that, head to the link in the show notes to learn more.